My name's Corey Enderby, and this is I'm going to try to do part 2 of my testimony. Ever since I've decided to record my testimonies, all hell has broken loose in my life. I mean, I'm not joking with you. It has been absolutely insane. When I recorded part 1, my computer got hacked. I had to wipe everything completely clean. I lost stuff on my computer. My bank account was hacked into. All these charges were put on my account. When I started to record part 2, the other day I recorded part 2. I already did it once, and it came out terrible. It was there was so much oppression going on in the atmosphere. Even here in the basement where I'm recording this, I could see I could see movement. I could see things going on in around me. And the night that I recorded part 2, I had a dream that night that I could feel oppression all around me. But that night, I in the dream, I was suspended in the air, and I was getting my block knocked off by a couple of demons. There was one in front of me this way, and there was one over here, and they were firing arrows at me, and they were sticking it to me. They were getting me really good, and I was getting my butt kicked. And I woke up, it was just before 2 a.m., and I started to pray and seek the Lord, read the Bible, and I slept better. I had what I think was a prophetic dream right after that. But and then just all kinds of things are happening in my life. All kinds of things are going wrong right now that don't normally go wrong. I've had a very smooth since I've started this business a few years ago. It's been pretty smooth. I've had all kinds of things go wrong. Things are breaking down. Things are going wrong at work. I mean, I'm getting attacked. This is really bad. And it's been extremely hard. But, to live is Christ and to die is gain. And the Lord gave me a Bible verse when I decided to wage war against the enemy with these testimonies, that he who wishes to save his life will lose it. So I'm going to press on here. I'm going to record this next part of my testimony. The second part, when I recorded it last time, it was like 2 hours long. It was really long. So I have no idea how I'm going to try to cut it down to where it's more manageable. It might be a 3-part series, because the good stuff is towards the end, and there's some stuff in the middle that kind of explains everything up to that point that I also think is important. But in part 1, where I left off, I had just seen Jesus the second time in his glorified form, and I continued in sin. Even after that vision of seeing Jesus like that in his glorified form, I continued in complete stupidity, and I continued to use cough syrup, and just like they did in Dallas when everything started falling in on me, everything started falling in on me again in Midland. I lost my job. Started losing friends, people that cared about me. It just seemed like my world was crumbling around me. And at some point, late October, it was really cold outside. But I definitely had demons in me again. They were in me again because I had gone back to the cough syrup. So they were there all over again. And this is what I think. I think that they wanted to kill me. And at the end of October, I got this wild idea. Look, everything's falling apart in Midland. I just need to go. I'm gonna just start walking down the highway. I actually took a bike, I said, I'm going to bike and walk and just travel up to Canada. And that's what I did. I set out and started to do that. And the first, I think it might have been the second night, first or second night when I got out there. The first full night, I think, when I got out there, the first night, I almost froze to death. Here I am on all this cough syrup. I don't know what I'm doing, kind of out of my mind, and I'm out there, and I sleep outside. It's freezing cold, below freezing, very cold, and I make it through the night. But when I get up the next morning, I'm doing this, violently shivering, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. I had no clue. I was like, what is wrong? Why am I shivering like this? And I even looked to my right, and there was some brush. I was right on the side of the highway, a smaller highway, but I saw some brush, along about maybe waist high, and I saw this. It was bizarre. It was surreal. I saw this coyote just kind of dip in and dip out of the brush and back into the brush, and he was just staring at me as he did that. And I thought, whoa, am I dying? Can they sense that I'm dying? I mean, that's what I'm thinking. Are they trying to eat me for lunch and for breakfast? And anyway, I'm shivering really bad, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? I can't stop. I can't get warm. And it was hypothermia is what it was. And believe it or not, I began to hear the voice of the Lord. And he said, why are you doing this again? And I had a lot of good reasons. It wasn't just to take off to Canada. Somehow I thought about what he said, and I decided that I had some good reasons to try and hit the road and go out there into the wild, if you will. And one of those reasons was I would be broke. I would be very poor. I wouldn't have access to cough syrup anymore. Hey, I could get out here away from the money and away from everything for a while, clear my head and get off of this stuff, since I couldn't get into Teen Challenge. And that was one of my reasons. Another reason was, I wanted to see my kids. I miss my kids. From the time I left Dallas and I got out there to Midland, I mean, it had been a while since I've seen my kids, and I was feeling pretty low about my position at that time. And I had no car, no way to see my kids, no job anymore, and I was really low, still hooked on drugs, and I wanted to see my kids so bad. When I worked for the Salvation Army, I had a job through them back in Midland. I was part of the litter abatement team, and basically what that was I would just go out and I would pick up trash on the side of the highways, and they had different accounts for that, and we would do that, and every now and then I'd find little cards, little Pokemon or what have you, little kitty cards, and I would mail them that stuff. I was so broke that I would literally mail them a card that I found on the ground, just to let them know that I loved them. And that's another reason why things were crumbling down in Midland, is I used that van, because I was the main driver. I used that van for personal reasons, and they found out about it, and I got in big trouble with them, lost my job. So I was really low, and I had betrayed the Salvation Army, the very people that had helped me so much, and I had betrayed the Foleys and everybody else, and I was just, I felt like I was backed up into a corner, and and still on the syrup. So I had these good reasons for God, for me doing this, and He, I felt the life come back into me just like that. I mean, I stopped shivering immediately, and I felt warm again, and I just thanked the Lord, and I kept on going. I couldn't believe it. I actually still kept going down the highway. it was surreal. I mean, I had no idea where I was going. Canada was kind of a goal. I never made it there. But that was just sort of a goal in my mind. And I traveled all over the place. I went back when I had finally started living for Jesus and got sober and stuff. I retraced those steps that I took on Google Maps, and I covered like around 12,000 miles. I went all over the place. Washington State, California, Wyoming, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, Oregon, Nevada, just everywhere. I went all over the West Coast several times, up and back and forth. And what was really bad about that was my original intention was to get out there away from money and get sober and get my life straightened out. Well, what happened was I started to become homeless, real homeless person, not just a person without a home, but a real mindset of homelessness. And I literally started to own it. You know what I mean? I remember the very first time that I held up a sign. It's called flying a sign. That's what homeless people call it. And I had a journal that I wrote stuff in, and that's what I used for my first sign. And I was so ashamed. I was in California, and I just remember like holding this sign up like, man, this is so humiliating doing this. And somebody helped me. It was real nice of him to do that. He actually put me up in a room and gave me money and took me out to dinner. It was amazing. This guy wasn't even a Christian. It was just like, wow, so kind of that person to do that. And so I traveled extensively out there. I had some very, very difficult times. It was, see, once you get into an attitude or a mindset of homelessness, you don't know how you're going to get out. It's so hard because you automatically go into this place where you're continuously, it's so weird. One of my lights just went out. One of my shop lights. So when you're homeless, you go into this attitude of extreme stress. You're trying to figure out where you're going to go next, where you're going to sleep, how you're going to eat, where you're going to get water, who are you going to run into? Is it going to be dangerous? Are you going to die today? It's just continuous stress. It never ends. And that's why a lot of homeless people are older than they are. They look older. Their skin is leathery and dry, and it ages you like really bad. And just to give you a couple of terrifying examples of what I put myself through as a homeless person. One time I ate out of a dumpster, just totally screwed up. I was hungry. I hadn't had a real meal in so long, and I waited in the alley behind a KFC for them to come out with their trash, and it just sickens me to think of that, what I did. And when I finally got it, it was just so disgusting it was so humiliating. You know, I went so low. I just took this thing so low. Another time, I hadn't showered in like a month, and I was hitchhiking through California, and I got kicked out of the car. I stunk so bad. It was just terrible time. I started to become a homeless person. I started to become, my identity started to change. I started to adopt like Buddhist kind of ideas and New Age ideas and Rastafarian ideas, and my hair started growing out. I started growing a beard, and I started associating more with people that ate like organic food all the time and grew their own food and had dreadlocks and things like that. I started meeting people like that, people that wanted to exit Babylon. So I at some point I did get a guitar, and I started to play guitar for money. The Lord on street corners and anywhere I could play, I'd put my hat out, and I never made very much money at all. And I look back at that, and I think the Lord just gave me enough to survive. Every step of the way, it was just survival, just barely. It was so hard, so incredibly hard. But at some point, and this version is way shorter than my original version. I'm going to try to condense it a little bit. But at some point, I was in California, and I was on my way to something called a rainbow gathering in near Mount Shasta, California. And I was in a city called Arcata, and I was going to cut across like a kind of a small road going to a city called Redding, and it was, through woods and all kinds of stuff, kind of desolate. And I was just going to walk it, hitchhike and walk it. And I was by myself, and I got by this town called Willow Creek, a real small town. I was past that a little ways, and I heard this river way down there at the bottom. I mean, it was kind of steep going way down there, quite a ways. And I could hear the river, and I was hungry, and I wanted to try and eat. And somebody along the way had given me this little extendable fishing pole. And I went down there. They had a little narrow trail, real tight trail going all the way down to this thing. And it was tough to navigate it. And I finally get to the bottom of it. And I had a tent and a sleeping bag. People had given me things along the way. Keep in mind, I was out there for like a year. So we're like flying through this thing. There's a lot that happened along the way, but there's a time and a place for that kind of discussion. I don't think it's right here, but people had given me things for that. And I had a tent and sleeping bag and all that stuff, and I set all that up, and I immediately went out and I started trying to fish for something to eat. And there's these giant boulders, big giant boulders, tall, small ones, just spread out along this river bank. And I was jumping up and down those things, trying to find a good place to fish. And I jumped down on a boulder, and my right leg just completely locked up straight. I could not bend it. It just locked completely straight. And I thought, whoa. I didn't know what happened. I had no clue. And I managed to hobble back to my tent. And I got inside my tent, and I was thinking, well, maybe I could stretch it out, and it'll pop back out. I didn't know what happened. And I stretched and did all these different things trying to get it to work, and it would not work. So I just went to sleep, and I woke up the next morning, and it was just swollen. I mean, I was thinking, oh man, what is wrong with my knee, and what am I going to do about it? So my plan was, because where you're at over there's bears, there's mountain lions. I mean, it's wild country. You don't want to be playing around out there. So I was like, well, I need to get out of here. So I grabbed my backpack and put my guitar in it, and I started crawling up the wall of that hill. I mean, it was really steep. And because I couldn't use my leg properly at all, and I was not going to try and take that trail all the way back up. So I just started crawling up to the highway that was up there, the road. And I left everything else behind, my tent, everything. I had nothing, just that backpack with that guitar. And anyway, I crawl up to the top near the highway, and I flag our driver down, and he calls an ambulance. Well, the ambulance gets there, and they take me back to Arcata, the hospital. And I get in there, and I don't have any insurance. I'm homeless, and they just give me this leg splint, which was really nice. It held my entire leg straight. And they gave me some crutches, and I needed that to walk, to stay off of my leg. I really didn't know what I was going to do now. I was really in a tough position. And I decided, well, I'm definitely not going to go to that rainbow gathering. And looking back, I can see that God probably had his hand in that whole injury, because it really shut me down. It just basically just shut me down totally. And I slowed down completely. And I was like, well, I guess I'll just start heading back towards the south, Southern California, because I was up in Northern California by Oregon. And so I just got on the side of the highway and I started hitchhiking. Well, it could be difficult hitchhiking sometimes on the side of the highway. Well, it was really easy now. All kinds of people were pulling over. It didn't matter, guys, girls, it didn't matter. People were just picking me up. Well, I got a ride with this one lady, and she was a lawyer, and she picked me up, and she was going to meet her boyfriend or something down further south, and she picked me up and gave me a lift really far. And she said, hey, I know of a homeless shelter in this city called Ukiah. It just opened up. It's big. It's brand new. How about that spot? Would that work for you? And I said, yeah, that'll work. I had no idea what else to do. Again, I didn't have a tent anymore. I didn't have any shelter. And so that sounded pretty good. And so she dropped me off there at the Ukiah homeless shelter. And I usually didn't stay in shelters. I didn't like shelters at all. I stayed out in the woods. I camped. I just stayed away from people most of the time. And usually when I did travel as a homeless person, I would usually not ever stay in a town more than a day or two. I would just keep moving. So I was always moving. I did get to a place at one point in Quartzsite, Arizona, where I did stay for a couple of months, but I had a job there. I worked there as just like helping out with, they had a gym and mineral show there, and just unpacking stuff and doing little things like that. And that, by the way, is the only other time that I relapsed while I was homeless. I got money and relapsed, so it was that was a bad stop for me. But for about 6 months there, 8 months, it was just pure homelessness and no cough syrup. And anyway, I get to Ukiah shelter and I check in and started getting to know people. And at this point, I had long hair. I had some beads in my hair and had some crystals that people had given me along the way, and different, like a tiger's eye piece of jewelry, and Grateful Dead shirts and just stuff like that, and I was, like I had said, I changed. I completely changed from who I was, just being out there, being around certain people, meeting people, being given things. So I sort of started adopting a different personality and philosophy altogether. I had, where I was pretty sure about Christianity, I started to get kind of jaded, along the way, and thought, well, I'd like to mix a little Buddhism, maybe with some Christianity, a little Rastafarianism here, because I like to smoke weed, maybe mix it all together a little bit, and just sort of form my own religion, my own belief system, whatever works for me kind of thing. So Christianity started to fade a little bit, but not really. It was kind of there. But this is a story that I do want to bring up during that period of traveling and being homeless. I did meet a guy along the way. This was interesting. This was pivotal for me. He was an older man, kind of a Sean Connery guy, had that kind of persona to him. And he was a drum maker and a leather worker, and just a really artsy, really cool guy, masterful at what he was doing, and I respected him a lot. And he lived, he was in Quartzsite, that one stop where I stayed for a couple of months, and for like a week or two, I would stop by and I would see him. I'd just stop by there and talk to him and try to pick his brain a little bit. And we got to a point where we were discussing religion and Christianity and stuff like that. And I asked him, well, what do you think about Christianity and Jesus and all this stuff? And he was straight up with me. He told me, well, look, I've done this and this and this. I've taken Buddhism as far as you can take it. I mean, this guy was really old. And he said, I've done the lotus. He just spit out a lot of different things that he had done, and that he had taken those things very far. And he discovered it in his search for the truth that it was Jesus all along. That those other paths were dead ends. There was nothing there. And that Jesus was the truth. And I never forgot that. I was like, wow, this is a really cool guy, artsy guy. He's real stoic figure. He's done all these different things that interested me a little bit. And that he had taken those things very far, and they were empty. And then, in fact, Jesus was it, And I just remember thinking that was really profound. I agreed with him because I had seen Jesus, yet because of my rebellion and my homelessness, I just got jaded and deceived too. So, but I knew that he was right. Well, back in Ukiah, I started getting to know people, but at this point, again, my attitude had changed, my persona had changed. I was a different person. And so the drug crowd really related with me. There's a lot of drugs in California, a lot of marijuana. People grow marijuana in California. When you walk through the neighborhoods, you can see pot plants swaying over the fences in the wind. I mean, it's just everywhere. People do it. There's meth there. There's a lot of different things there. And so it's a very potent drug culture. They sell it there. They have 215 cards that they issue, and you can go purchase marijuana. So I fit right in. I mean, Ukiah was a great place so I thought, for me to stay. And I did. I couldn't go anywhere. My leg was gone. The thing is, the homeless shelter in the daytime, they kick you out at like 8 in the morning, and they don't let you come back till 5. So you have to go find something to do. So I would go play guitar on the streets and sidewalks every day for money. And with my leg, I just put the hat out and just play guitar and sing. And one day, I was playing downtown. I'd been playing there for a while, and I noticed that there was a wine tasters convention, and that they were auditioning for musicians, so you could bring your tape or CD in, and they could pick who they wanted to play for that event, a big event downtown in Ukiah. And I decided to try it. I didn't have a CD or a cassette, but I walked into the lady's office and I auditioned right on the floor, and she said she picked me and I could play in that. Well, I played in that and I made $100. Now keep in mind, I had it had been like 9 months of no syrup. I had been doing really good. That's the longest I'd gone in a long time. And I was homeless, and I was doing pretty good. And I played that, and they gave me $100, and I went out and got some syrup immediately. And I took the syrup, and when I took the syrup, this is where it's kind of blurry, a little bit blurry. I'm trying really hard to remember. But when I took the syrup, I went to the city park there in Ukiah, and I sat down to play my guitar. I was feeling it. And these people, other, hippies and stuff, they start coming over to play with me with their various instruments and things like that. And I heard this alarm coming from the heavens. I mean, it was beep, 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 just like that. And I immediately heard it, and I knew it was God instantly. I knew it was, and I got terrified. So they didn't hear it. Nobody else heard it. I got up, and I immediately walked away from everybody. And what was interesting about this time, there was this guy that showed up at the shelter. He was a new guy. I'd never seen him before. I knew everybody at the shelter. They were there for months. They were there for a long time. I think I was at the shelter for like a total of 4 months. And that's how long I had to wait for this surgery, for me to get my surgery. It took a while, and God really shut me down. But this guy had showed up out of nowhere, and he was a new guy, and he paced the floor, and he would talk backwards, and he would stare at me too, and I think he was a Satanist. And what was really creepy is I had my own personal spot that was in the distance of the shelter that I would go wait at until the shelter opened. Sometimes I would go over there and I would stand and just wait until the shelter opened. Then I would walk over to the shelter, and it was in the distance. And when I went over there to go to the shelter, he was in my spot. And it was just really creepy. I just felt in my spirit that he worked for the devil, and he was there during my relapse this time, and he was standing there in my spot, and I just stared at him, and I just knew, and I just kept walking by him to a different area, and anyway, that night. This guy was pacing the floor, speaking backwards, just kind of staring at me every now and then. And this was really serious, by the way. I mean, this was a real no-joke kind of time. But I was laying in my bunk and feeling pretty good. I had taken this cough syrup again. The demons had come back again, even stronger. I mean, I'm just not doing good, you know what I mean? And I'm feeling really good because of the drugs. And I'm sitting there, and I hear the voice of the Lord come. And he said, "You're going to make a decision now. I want you to decide if you're going to follow me or if you're not. Make that decision right now." And I remember sitting there and I was debating in my mind, is this the direction that I want to go? I mean, isn't this crazy? This part is kind of tough for me to do because it makes me really feel like a lunatic. After all that I had seen, I'm still debating whether or not I want to follow God. I mean, that's what these drugs do. They just fill you with the devil. And I'm sitting there debating, do I want to follow God or not? Or do I want to continue going this way? And I'm sitting here thinking about the possibilities of staying on this path and going away from God, or which is essentially following the devil or following God, And I'm kind of leaning towards the devilish way, to be quite honest with you. It was really screwed up. And at this point, I started to feel fire, like a hot flame, moving up my feet, up my legs. And it's creeping real slowly, and I can feel it. And I'm thinking, am I going to be able to turn back? This was going through my head, like, if I decide not to follow God, can I change my mind later? And I just got this overwhelming feeling that no, you make a decision now because you will not change your mind later. You'll essentially become a reprobate and you'll be damned. You'll be gone. And don't ask me. I think that it is possible for some people to make a decision. I mean, it says in the Bible that God can send you strong delusion and you'll believe a lie. You'll be a reprobate. You'll just be damned. And you won't even realize it. And I think that was a pivotal point for me, just like with so many other people that are living in sin, where maybe God gives them a chance to make a decision. And it comes a point where you've got to make a decision. Enough is enough. Are you going to repent and follow God or are you not? And as I was feeling those, and this is the mercy of God. I mean, He's given me He's helping me here to make a decision, but I'm feeling that flame coming up my leg, and I'm thinking, if I don't follow God, I'll go to hell. You know what I mean? I may have some fun while I'm here on earth, but I'll go to hell. And I snapped out of it. I thought, no, of course not. I'm not going to. It got all the way up to my waist practically. And I snapped out of it and I said, no, God, no. I want to follow you. And when I said that, the flame started to recede until it left. And it was a very, very powerful moment for me, with the alarm that went off and the flames and the decision that I had to make. And then the Satanist was over here and he's in my spot. So all these different things, the culmination of all these things, just, I understood it was very serious. And that here I am again, screwed up again, and I need to make a decision. And so I said, I need to leave. I need to get out of Ukiah. I need to get out of the shelter. I need to get away from these people. I need to change my life. And I thought, well, I'll just go to the next town over, which was about an hour away, Fort Bragg. I thought, I'll just go there. And nobody knows me. I'll start over. Because I had made connections in Ukiah where the shelter was that people were smoking weed a lot. They were drinking a lot. They were doing drugs. I mean, it's a whole scene there. And I was part of that. And I said, I need to leave. I need to get away, and I'll change my life there. And so I leave the shelter. I mean, it was kind of a risky thing to do. They didn't play around at that shelter. It's like it was full. You know, people wanted to get in there and stuff. And I said, I'm leaving. I'm taking off tonight. And they said, okay. And I left, and I started walking down the road, and I got a little ways down the road, and it was nighttime, and I ripped the jewelry off of my neck. I had jewelry. I just ripped it off and threw it to the ground. I had like what they call a double tab terminated generator. So I don't even remember. It's been so long. It was some lady that called herself a goddess gave it to me. It's just satanic stuff, you know, that I had on my neck. And I got it off and I threw it off. I had long hair and I said, I've got to cut my hair because if I go to sleep tonight and wake up tomorrow, I might change my mind. And I don't want to do that. So I was trying to make all these changes like really fast. I smashed my guitar. I said, this thing is bringing me nothing but trouble. I got rid of that. I had this little knife, pocket knife, and I grabbed it, and I grabbed a big lock of my hair, just bundled up, and I cut it off. I looked like a moron, but I wanted to make sure that I was not going to change my mind, that I was definitely going to repent and follow through the next day. I was really serious about it. And I'm walking down the road, and I hear the Lord say, go back. And I thought, go back to Ukiah? You know, I wasn't that far away, less than a mile. I was already on the highway walking, and he said, go back. And I thought, I was terrified. I was like, are you serious? Go back and change my life in front of all these people that that know me, that partied with me, that I thought, man, this is crazy. Okay. I knew it was going to be humiliating. And I get back there and walk back to the shelter, and I was really surprised. They said, oh, okay, change your mind, come back in. I mean, it was extreme favor. And I went back in, and I had this guy named Samson cut my hair. He shaved it, just buzzed it off the next day. And I don't even think he liked me that much, so he probably enjoyed that, you know. And anyway, I was bald, just totally shaven, and no beard, nothing. And I even got rid of all my clothes, tie-dyes, all that stuff. They were gone. I got regular street clothes on. I didn't want anybody to associate me with drugs or anything. And I said, they called me Tarzan. That was kind of like my nickname. And I said, don't call me that. Call me Corey. Corey is my name. And I was made fun of. There was a guy named Otis that I was friends with. He had real long hair, and he gave me a really hard time. You know, it was hard. It was really hard. It was embarrassing and humiliating. But I was repenting. I was repenting for Christ and for myself. And I wanted to get free. You know, so there was even a guy named Rick that I used to play at the shelter with at nights. He would stumble in there drunk every night, just gone. He was an older guy, had long hair, and just everybody knew that he was going to die soon. I mean, he was that bad of an alcoholic, always drunk, always. And he even came up to me a couple weeks later. I was in a park just sitting by myself. I didn't want to be around anybody. And he came over, tried to reach out to me. I said, Rick, I don't want to be bothered. And he quietly got up and walked away. And I started to repent. I was really, really taking it serious. And I met this guy. I think people started to respect me too at a certain point. It was difficult. But I met this one guy. His name was Jeff. And he had just moved into the shelter. And he had cancer. And he was just waiting for his government-provided house or apartment to open up. And he had a college education, and he was a really nice guy, and I liked him. He didn't do drugs or anything like that. And we struck up a friendship, and at this point, I was trying to find out who God was too, you know, and he wasn't real sure, but he kind of believed it. And I remember I had come across a King James Version Bible, because I was like, okay, God, I want to start reading the Bible now. And I came across the King James Version, and I tried to read it, and I was like cross-eyed, trying to understand what it was saying. It was so difficult. I was ready to give up. I actually boldly told God, look, if this is how the Bible is, I'm not going to be able to read it, God. I'm done. You know, I'm sorry, but I can't understand it. And I knew there were other versions out there. And so I asked the Lord, I said, the next one that I come across that's free, because I was homeless and I didn't have any money, I said, that'll be the one I know you want me to read, because I don't know where to go and what to do. And I wanted to read the Bible really bad. I wanted to know who Jesus was. So the next one I came across, it was like a day or two later. I'm not joking. And it was laying on the table in the room that we ate in. And it was just laying there, and it was free. It was available. So I took it and opened it, and it had a prison ministry stamp on the inside of it. And I literally, for the next month or so, I went underneath this tree, like away from everybody, by myself, and I read the Bible every day. And I read the New Testament twice. It was the contemporary English version. And I finally understood who Jesus was and what he did. It all made sense to me, finally. But I met this guy, Jeff, and I read in the Bible, the New Testament, where it said if two agree on something in my name, it shall be done. You know, an agreement prayer. And I said, hey, Jeff, I read this in the Bible. It said if we agree on stuff, it'll happen, you know. And I said, would you do that with me? And he said, yeah, I'll do it with you, you know. And so we prayed on stuff like 3 times, and they all came true. I mean, and I'm blown away. I'm like, whoa, this is real. And he's blown away too, and that all this is happening, because they were big things. One of them was for housing. I mean, there are all these people in the shelter that wanted to get housing. They wanted to get out of there. And there's transitional places that you can go with a lot more freedom and just nicer. And I got it. I mean, it was like out of all these people, and it was a tough day. I mean, they were kind of like jealous that I'd gotten that, you know. So I was leaving the shelter. The next one was to get this job. And I had been looking for a job since I had repented that night that I broke my guitar. I started looking for work. I decided I need to get a job. I need to start trying to get my life straightened out. I'm done with this homeless thing. The shelter was really good for me because it slowed me down enough to get out of that lifestyle and to start wanting to get into a normalized lifestyle again. So I've been looking for work, and I had applied at all these different places, and Applebee's was actually, they were going to hire me. But I really wanted this other job. I mean, it was paying $90,000 a year. And they gave you your own truck and your own phone, and it was appliance delivery for Home Depot, and but through a private third-party company. And I thought, man, there's no way I'm going to get that job. I've been homeless for a year. I mean, look at my resume, it's rocked. And we did that agreement prayer, and I got that job. I mean, it was like, Jeff was just blown away. What was even more strange was Jeff, like I said, he had cancer. He told me, he said, I don't know what it is. I'm starting to sweat at night. And he had been sweating at night and going through this period of just, he didn't know what was happening, changes. And he said that he went and got checked out and they couldn't find the cancer. In all honesty, I don't remember that he was that excited about it. I mean, he didn't know what to think because he had owned this cancer for so long that to lose it would have meant, I guess, to lose all those benefits. So I think I remember his reaction not being that. It was tough, but at the same time, he was like just blown away. So I think God did that. God healed him of that somehow through his belief as a result of these agreement prayers. So the agreement prayers weren't necessarily to maybe to bless me exclusively, but they were also to show him that God is real, which it did. And so during this period, I also got a guitar and started playing at church. And I was leading worship at church, and I was doing really well. And I finally got my surgery on my knee. And they gave me these pain pills. And my knee actually really wasn't hurting that bad. It was hurting. I could feel it. But it wasn't unbearable to where I couldn't handle it. But somehow I reasoned in my mind that, hey, this doctor gave me this pain medicine, so it must be okay. If the doctor prescribed it, it's okay. It's legal. It's okay with God, And so I started taking them. And one thing led to another. And I was doing cough syrup again. So here I am on this cough syrup. I even led worship one morning on cough syrup. I had never done that, ever. And it was bad. What happened was I was leading worship, and my voice changed right in the middle of a song. It went from normal to, and I knew it was God. I knew God had I knew it. He shut me down, and I left. I eventually left the church, and I was still trying to reach out to people. I believed God. I believed that He wanted to save people. I believed all of that. Because I'd read the Bible now. But I was on cough syrup, so I was screwed up. I would go around to homeless people all around town and give them $20 and money, and because I had all this money, and I was pissing. For the language, I was making the devil angry. He was, I was in his domain, using drugs, yet preaching the gospel, so he was angry. And what happened, at some point, this wasn't that night. Let me back up a little bit. At some point, this went on for maybe a month or two, maybe a couple of months. But at one point, I was on this syrup, and I used to park. It was a delivery truck, 18-footer, and I would park it on the side of the road, and I got in there, and I would go to the back of the truck and play my guitar. And I was playing the guitar back there one day, and I heard a voice that pretended to be God. It sounded like God. It acted like God. And he said, Corey, with boldness, he said, Corey, this is God. And I just remember, I got interrupted out of my playing, and I thought, yes, sir. And he said, I'm so proud of you. I want to come down and I want to play a couple of songs. I want you to play a couple of songs for me. And I was really nervous. And I said, okay. Yeah, that's fine. And he said, I'll be standing by the back door. You know, the back sliding door slides up on those trucks. And I said, okay. And he said, can you see me? And I looked and I said, I can't see you. And he said, can you see me now? And I looked and I thought, oh my goodness. He was like 7-8 feet tall. And I guess he adjusted himself. I guess they can probably let people see them if they wanted to, because he was able to tweak himself enough to let me see him. And I could see his outline really good, but I could see through him still, but I could still see facial features, and he was smiling really big, and he was pretending to be God, and I thought it was God. It was only in retrospect, looking back, that after all the ensuing events later that I'll discuss, that I realized that wasn't God. But at some point, I was playing a couple of songs. I played 2 songs for him, and one of the songs that I played was called "You Know Who I Am." And I think it was the second one that I played. Yeah, it was the second one. And at some point, I was just staring at him while I was playing. And I looked up. I messed up on him just for a split second. It wasn't very bad mess up, but I messed up. And I remember seeing his smile, because he was smiling the whole time I was playing like he was God. I'm so proud of me, so happy. And that split second that I messed up, I was watching him very attentively, and his smile changed real fast. It went from like that frown or whatever he gave me for that split second, you could read into that so deeply, because it was a look of absolute hatred and disgust. But it was a split second. It was weird. And I didn't think about. I thought about it later, and I realized what had happened. But while you're playing and while you're blown away and you're just staring, you don't catch all of that. You're not able to process all that till I didn't anyway until later, and because I was deceived. And he didn't want to hear any more after the second song, and he said, "Come up here and give me a hug." And I sat my guitar down and I went over there and I gave him a hug. Again, I thought this was God. I had no idea, but ashamedly, I'm telling you right now that I hugged a demon. And yeah, regretfully. Anyway, at some point, the reason it bothers me is because I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? I look back at that and it's just, I did some really stupid stuff, stupid things, and I think this might have been the next day. at this point, I'm feeling pretty good because I thought that was God approving of my cough syrup use, and I was just so incredibly deceived. And at one point, I poured cough syrup in a little shot glass, and I toasted the Lord. I was standing outside, and I said, thank you, and I shot it down, and I heard this scream, not a scream, but kind of like a scream, no! And it was the Holy Spirit. I grieved the Holy Spirit. And then I just remember thinking, what did I knew it was God. I was like, whoa, am I not supposed to drink this? I was really screwed up. I was deceived. And I got scared. I didn't know what was going on. But I blocked it out, and I think it might have been that night. I'm not certain for sure, but that night, I think it was. I had another friend, Tim. He worked with me during that appliance delivery. He was a good friend at the shelter too. And I was trying to get him to go to church and do stuff like that and follow God. And anyway, so the whole time I'm on fire for God while I'm doing this cough syrup. It was, I don't know how I did that. It was ridiculous. But I'm sitting here trying to tell Tim about Jesus and God, and I'm out in this park, and it's late fall. I mean, the leaves they're just about to fall off the trees. They're totally dried up. And we were out at this park with tons of trees, and the wind was howling. It was just shh. The leaves were doing that. And Tim was out there with me, and I'm sitting here talking to him about church and Jesus, and then all of a sudden he started getting really confused. And this is where the story gets really interesting. He started to get really confused. And really confused to the point where I knew something was really wrong with him. And he said, I gotta go. And he left. And I was there all alone. He had his vehicle and I had that truck there. And I'm telling you, instantly, I heard all the leaves stop. They went shh. And it got thick and dead still. And I'm outside. It's nighttime. Dead still, dead thick. And I felt this pressure come from all sides. Almost as if people were right up, butting their chests against me. But I couldn't see them. They were just right up against me. And I knew I was in trouble. And I knew it was demonic. And I couldn't see anything. But I could feel them. And the leaves were just, like I said, it was just shh. It was crazy. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. It was extremely frightening. And I get back in my truck and I go to that spot that was a favorite spot of mine where I hugged that demon. And I parked there, and something very serious was going down, and it was like a showdown. The showdown of showdowns. And I think the devil was angry that I had been telling these homeless people about Jesus while on cough syrup and giving them money. And I would go up to homeless people and say, "Message from the Lord, lo, I am with you always." And I would give them money and just do stuff like that. And it was really having an effect on people. And not only that, let me backtrack a little bit. Before I started screwing up, right around that time of this thing, right around when I got my surgery and stuff, I saw that guy Rick. Remember the drunk guy at the homeless shelter? Well, he had seen me change my life. Now I have finally understood why God wanted me to go back to Ukiah as an example. Because Rick, he had been sober for 2 weeks. He was getting his life straightened out. His hair was cut. He was getting sober. I couldn't believe it. This other girl, Juniette, she had dreadlocks. Her hair was totally cut. She was trying to get her life straightened out. It was just, I had by me going back to the shelter and changing my life, had such an incredible impact on so many people. So the devil was already mad because I had already started all this stuff up. So now that I went back to the syrup, it's like when you go back to drugs, you're in his zone now. He can get his hands on you. It's like when you're off the drugs and you're out of sin, he's like hanging at the bars wanting to get into the cage. I want to get at you. And when you go to drugs, you open the door right up and he can come in and get his hands on you. And that's the way it was. He was about to get his hands on me for real. And I know my phone is the time is about to be up on this phone because I've only got about 30 minutes of recording time. So I'm going to go and offload it and then I'll come right back. But this is where it gets interesting, and this will be the last part of this. Over to my favorite spot where I had hugged that demon, and this was at nighttime, and God began speaking with me. I mean, this was the Lord, no question about it. This was God speaking to me this time. There was a lot of activity around me, but God was asking questions. He was trying to get straight answers out of me about my condition, about being sober, about what I thought about the cough syrup. And I wasn't really being upfront with him. I wasn't being honest with God. He asked me if I was intoxicated. And I said, no, I don't think I am. And it's funny, as I was saying that, I felt a slur come out. I was starting to slur a little bit, and I was like, I don't know why I was playing so many games with God. But at some point in the conversation, my God allowed my dad to come up from hell. I saw my dad. I'm looking out of the window of the truck. It's at nighttime. No lights are on. Where I'm at is dark. And I see my dad come from this side. He was escorted by at least 3 demons. They were all black. I couldn't make any distinctive features out on them at all. They were just black as you could get. And they were little. And for some reason, my dad was, don't ask me how, but he was smaller. And my dad, they escorted him here, and they went off to the side, and then my dad was right in front of me. Maybe it was just the way the vision was. I'm not sure. But my dad he looked exactly like he did when he died. I was 13 when he died. He was an alcoholic. I never really knew where my dad was. I never really thought about it. Again, I hadn't even repented of my sins yet. I mean, I hadn't been living for God. I was still going back and forth with drug addiction at this time. So I had just read the Bible for the very first time. I had read like the first paragraph of Genesis before and a few Proverbs, but I really read the Bible for the very first time only like a couple months before this. So I didn't know where my dad went, and I didn't even really consider it. I didn't think about it, but I love my dad, and my dad was, he didn't have glasses on. He wore glasses, but he looked exactly like he did when he died. And I could see his facial features. He was very, very clear. It was, he was white and grayish, kind of ghostly. He wasn't black or anything like the demons were. And he looked extremely relieved to be out of there. Extremely relieved. Very comfortable, very thankful to be out of there. And I started to try and ask God if he would take him out of there. See, things got really bad for me that night. I'll get into that. But I think God was trying to intervene and give me an opportunity to try and come clean and work with him before he allowed, because the devil wanted to get his hands on me. He really did. But God had to allow him to do that. This is just in retrospect what I've been able to think about and to reflect on. But and the reason why I think God intervened at that point and tried to reason with me about the whole situation. But I was trying to get the Lord to take my dad out of there. I didn't want my dad to go back there. And I was sitting there trying to ask God, well, can you do this? Can you annihilate him? Can you make him as if he never existed? I mean, can you put him on a... he said he couldn't do that. Or he wouldn't do that. But I said, well, can you put him on another planet? Just by himself. I mean, I was sitting there trying to plead with God not to send him back to this place. And then somehow God asked me, he said, well, do you want to come to heaven? And I don't know what was going through my head. I guess as a result of maybe me going back to the cough syrup so much, and maybe even being on it that night a little bit. Believe me, if I was straight as a whip that night when all this was going on. I mean, that was enough to knock your buzz right out, what was going on. And he said, do you want to come here? And I like I said, I guess as a result of me going back and forth, I honestly didn't know that I was fit for heaven. At this point, my confidence was pretty low, and I said, I don't know if it's for me, God. I mean, I'm sitting here telling him, and he said, well, your grandpa's here. Don't you want to see your grandpa? And the only grandpa that was dead at that time, the other one was still alive, was Grandpa Enderman, my dad's dad. Later, my dad's dad, Grandpa Enderby, had really been seeking the Lord the last couple years of his life. I found that out from my aunt, his daughter. And so it made sense. But I said, well, can you just make me and my dad as if we never existed? Just make us disappear. I wanted to go with I wanted to die too. I was really concerned. I didn't want my dad to go back there at all. And so I was trying to really, really plead with the Lord, and it wasn't working. The Lord, when he makes up his mind about it, he makes up his mind. And that's where my dad didn't belong to God anymore. He belonged to the devil. And at the very end of the conversation, at some point, I don't know why, my dad said, I'm proud of you. He looked at me and he said that. He said, I'm proud of you. And as soon as he said that, the demons that were standing there, they suddenly reappeared from over here, and they grabbed my dad, and they began to whip up on him like nobody's business. I mean, they were thrashing him good. I mean, all I could hear was just, they were ripping him apart. It was terrible. And I looked as they were doing it, but they were moving back out of the natural eye. So they disappeared, but even after they disappeared, I could still hear it a little bit. And they were hurting him really bad. And I thought about, why would he say that? Here I am, having a conversation with God. I'm not doing very good. And the only reason that I think that would make them mad, the demons that mad, was that maybe the devil, when he went to get him out of hell, his part of hell or whatever, to bring him to earth, maybe he said, your son is causing all kinds of trouble for us. Get up and let's come up here. to take him up there. I thought long about this because I was reaching homeless people. I was up there in Ukiah causing all kinds of trouble. That was a drug area, big time. Like I said, weed everywhere. The biggest bust in High Times history at that time was by Ukiah. Lots of meth, lots of parolees. It was a bad area. And I took a stand for Jesus in that area, and I really shined my light. Even though I relapsed, I screwed up, I really did reach a lot of people. So maybe that was the reason. I have no idea why he said that. It's a mystery to me. And, surprisingly today, that was a traumatic thing to see my dad be a prisoner like that. And I know where he's at. Because he was an alcoholic, he was an adulterer. We never read the Bible. I never saw him pray. He never went to church. That's where he's at, He's in hell. And even though I know that's where he's at, God's given me peace. That's where he's at, and I can only work out my own salvation with fear and trembling. I can't. It's a lie to think that you can pray someone out of hell. I mean, judgment has been set. That's where he's at. I don't want him there. Of course I don't. But this is why we're alive now, to make the decisions that we make now, so we don't go there. We stay on the narrow road, the path to life. It's all laid out in the Bible, what we need to be doing. And this is very real. This is no joke. But after my dad went away, I started getting beat up. I started getting messed with by a demon. And I could hear him hitting me. It was I could feel it and hear it. It was like whenever he hit me, it sounded like that. So not only was it audible, it was I felt it, and he was playing with me, toying with me, and it got so bad. There must have been a lot of demons around me, tons around me. Remember when I was in the park and the leaves stopped rustling and they all got on me like that? There must have been a lot. Because I asked the Lord, when they were messing with me so bad, I said, I got to get out of here. And my first thought was, I've got a lot of money. I'm going to go to San Francisco, get on a plane, and I'm going to leave. I'm getting out of here. And they'll leave me alone, because I just felt like I needed to get out of California and that would solve my problem. Well, I start driving to San Francisco, and this thing is in the cab. I can't see it the whole time, but it's hitting me. I feel it. And I asked the Lord, I said, Lord, can you help me? I'm begging, pleading for help here. And this was, I think, the last time I heard the Lord's voice. And he said, if I do that, it'll start a war. I don't know what that means. All I can think of is there might have been a lot of them. I don't know. But that's what he said. That's the last thing I heard. And I finally get to the San Francisco airport, and I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get out of here. And I run in there, and I've handed my debit card, and I'm at the counter, and the clerk is very attentive and trying to get my ticket and stuff. And all of a sudden, she gets real stupefied, just kind of confused and like dumbfounded. And I'm like, where's my ticket? Can you give me my ticket? I'm and she's just like that. And then the manager comes over, what's going on? And then it starts happening to him. And so I'm like, while this is going on, there's people in there too. And I'm like, how are they doing this? The demons, how are they doing this to these people? And it was so bad that I grabbed my card and I walked out. I left everything there and I walked out of there. And I was walking back to my truck. I'm sitting here trying to recite the Lord's Prayer. I'm trying to do everything I can do to get this out of here, get them away from me. Nothing was working. And at one point, as I'm walking back to my truck, I feel something rip off the back side of my leg, the calf down. And I feel this wet feeling back there. Even though in the natural my calf is still there, I just knew they ripped off my calf. Don't ask me how. I could feel it was wet. It felt like blood. I could feel it. And I felt my leg get weaker, actually. And I started to stumble and fall. And I was begging the Lord to help, please help. And it was so bad, I finally get back to my truck. And I'm trying to get away and get out of there. And they're on me and they're hitting me and beating me up. And I smacked the top of the truck into a low clearance concrete thing at the airport. And I back up and I start driving, trying to get out of there, and then this police officer stops me, and he comes over, and he's like, "Can I see your license and registration?" And I hand him that, and I'm sitting here trying to maintain, and they're playing with me and hitting me. I could feel them and hear them. He can't. He doesn't know what's going on, but as he's got my license, he starts to do the confused thing. And this is happening. I'm trying to maintain because I don't want to get arrested, and I certainly don't want to get committed somewhere. So I'm trying to maintain while they're doing this to me. And it was like a couple minutes had passed, and I said, "Sir, what do you need? You know, I have everything there for you. What's the problem?" And I had to say it again. I've never done this with a police officer. I was really loud and firm with him, but I said, "Sir." I snapped him out of it, and he just handed it back to me. And I drove away, and they're really messing with me now. And I'm driving back up towards Ukiah because I don't know where else to go or what else to do. And I'm thinking, well, if I can just survive through the night and get to a church tomorrow. It was like Sunday the next day, and I said, if I can just do that, I'll be fine, and I can get some help. And anyway, they're playing with me and toying with me, and I'm exhausted, just utterly exhausted, because I had recited the Lord's Prayer, I had prayed to God for help, I had done everything I thought I could do to get control of the situation, and I could do nothing. Nothing. I tried rebuking them, I tried to do everything I could do, nothing worked. And I was so exhausted, I pulled off the side of the road. This is like 2 in the morning now, 3, and I just passed right out in the cab. And when I woke up in the dream, I was in this room, and I was standing there in this room, and I was looking around the room, and the room was nasty, dirty, filthy, evil looking, wicked. And I was looking around thinking, this is disgusting. This is a bad place. And there was a door right there and a door right behind me. And all of a sudden, boom, the door burst open, and this giant 8-foot tall creature burst through the door, and his skin was real droopy, just nasty looking. And he burst through the door. If you watch there's a video by a guy named Bill Weiss. He spent 23 minutes in hell. In his video, he has a video, there's a creature in that video that he found that looked almost exactly like what I saw. And this thing burst through the door, and it started stabbing me and cutting me with these rusty, weird-looking knives and spear-like things that were just nasty. And he was getting me really good, and then I was immediately pulled out of that room, and all of a sudden I was on a building, or some kind of building or something. And I was outside at this point, and I looked out at the sky, and it was sepia looking, just really musty and smoky, and just really bad, and reddish and brownish, and just it must have been hot in that place. I didn't feel the heat. I didn't feel any pain now that I think about it, but it was more of the mental torment of what they were doing to me. And there was a creature coming this way at me, and then one this way, and they were at a distance, maybe 50 yards away. They were pretty far away, but they were running at me full speed, and they were so angry. They had so much hate. I can't even begin to describe the hatred they had for me. It was like on a level that words can't even describe. They they didn't even know me. They were pursuing me like I was a piece of, I don't know. It was hard to describe. Like the hatred they had, the motivation, enthusiasm they had to get to me. It was like, it was amazing. And they got to me. I'm sitting here standing there, and they got to me, and I just remember they started getting me again. And the one that one demon had this rusty, it looked like a Chinese star-like thing with, I just saw the rust on it, and it's like they wanted to use these torture devices on you, because it gave them more pleasure, maybe, I don't know, but I as soon as they got to me and started getting me again, I woke up, and I was in my cab again, and for a split second I was like, was this all just a dream? Because that was terrifying. That place was like, whoa. And I thought it was just all a dream. For a split second, I was like, am I in the clear? And I was still so utterly exhausted, but I was like, am I in the clear? And then I heard the voice again, the demon. No. He thought this was over. I mean, he was just really giving me a hard time. They talk normally, but very cocky, very evil, just evil. The voice is cocky. They use a lot of cuss words, profanity. They like to use profanity. Anything vile, they like to do that. They're just they're bad news. And anyway, I was laying there, and when I heard that voice come back, I thought, how am I going to get away from this? I mean, I'm thinking, what do I got to do to get away? This is crazy. And I felt this thing dangling. Even though my eye was there, I felt something dangling, and it was a ball. And I felt the vein coming up, and I said, I'm sitting here begging God, what is that? I mean, this is the state I'm in at this point, where my words are like, God, what is that? I mean, I remember I was talking like that. I was hopeless. And the demon said, what, you want me to put that back in for you? Here, and he put it back in, and he'd rip it back out. And he was just toying with me. And one of them, I don't know if it was that one or another one, was digging into my head a lot. Like right there, trying to get in there. And I mean, they were jacking with me like, they did a lot of things to me. They were really they were torturing me. And at one point, this is really going to blow your way, but they were really giving it to me. At one point, this demon, he must have been in charge of the whole group. He put demons inside of me. He forced them to go in me. I'm just laying there, just getting rocked, just tortured, and he put them in me. I felt them go in. They were just, my mouth opened up, and I felt them going in, and then when they got, all these demons were in me, they went in like that. I just, I was like that. I just felt them all over my body. They were moving around. And I remember at one point, I could feel them moving around all under my skin. And at one point, I looked down at my arm, because I'm like, and I saw these bumps as if it was a movie. They were just moving around like that, bunches of them. And he said, what, you don't like that? You don't like how that feels? He was just really messing with me, toying with me. And I'm begging him, please take him out, please, and he pulled them out of me again. They went out. I mean, that's just one example of what they did to me. I knew I wasn't going to go back to sleep. I didn't want to go back to that place, wherever I was there. I didn't want to go there either. So I stayed awake that night, and I dealt with it. And they were playing with me and messing with me, and they knew that they had me right where they wanted. And I just thought, if I can get to a church, I'll make it. I'll get out of this thing. And I somehow made it through the night, and the next morning the sun started coming up, and I started driving around trying to look for a church, and I saw this church, and I ran in there, and I rushed, "Where's the pastor? Where's the pastor?" And I went in there, and I saw the pastor. As soon as I got in his office, he was kneeling on the ground, messing with a bookshelf, and he said, "Yeah, what can I do to help you?" And I started to immediately try to tell him what was going on, and then he started to get the confused thing going. The what? And I immediately knew what it was, and I turned around immediately and walked right out of the church. I mean, I didn't even try to deal with that, because they get so when they got that confused, there was no talking to them. But I was really surprised. I was like, wow, they can get a pastor too. But surprisingly, I get back in my truck and I drive around and I see another church, and there's cars in the parking lot. I pull in there and I run in there, and I walked in on an all women's prayer meeting, Bible study, and they couldn't get in there. Those women around that table, they were not touched. And I walked in there and I was like terrified. I said, "Can I stay?" He said, "Yeah, sure, you can stay." And I sat down. I was too terrified to tell him what was going on. I didn't want him to think I was crazy. I didn't know what to do. And I stayed for an hour in there, and I was fine. Didn't get touched one time. Nothing. It was awesome. I should have told him what was going on. I didn't. And I get back, the stuff's over, and I'm walking back out to my truck. I think it's all over. I think, okay, I'm cool now. Everything's fine. I get back in my truck, and what do you think I was gone? He starts getting me again. And he was getting me and getting me. And this time he was just focusing on this area. He was just digging. And I started to rapidly lose hope. I mean, I was going down the tubes fast. And it must have been around 11 or 12 noon about this time. I have no idea. I didn't care about the time. And I pulled over, and I started walking. Couldn't drive anymore. I was losing it. And I started walking, and he finally broke through that, whatever he was trying to do. And because I could tell his hand went like overexerted itself too much, and then he pulled it back up, and then he reached down deep and he grabbed something and he pulled up on it. And when he did, I felt it come up past my knees, and when it did, I immediately fell to my knees. I couldn't stand without that. I don't know if it was my soul or what he pulled on, but then it snapped back, and then he reached in there again, and he was pulling as hard as he could on that thing. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to hell. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was like, wow, I've gone too far. And I gave up hope. I mean, I totally gave up hope. I mean, I let go. I finally said, I'm going to hell. And I couldn't believe it. And immediately when I did that, the demon went away. And couldn't really make sense of all of it at the time. It was a really hard experience for me to go through. I mean, it was, I think without the Holy Spirit inside of me, I had the Holy Spirit, but I think without God, I would have lost my mind. And I can understand if that's what some people go through. If they go through something like that, or a demonic experience to that extent, they don't have the Holy Spirit, you will lose it. That was crazy. Absolutely crazy. And probably the most surprising part, I mean, I was just so broken and so confused. Does God love me anymore? Does God care about me? All these things were going through my head. What is this? I mean, I was like rubbed numb, just. And I started hitchhiking back to Texas, and I continued to use. I know that sounds stupid, sounds crazy, but I continued to use, and I started trying to get back to Texas. And when I got back to Texas, I tell you what, I'm going to finish this. I'm going to have to download this and then come right back. I was leaving California, heading back to Texas, where I was originally from, and I decided that I would go see my mom, and made the long trek back. There's a lot of details in between stuff that are interesting, but I'm trying to condense this. It's already been a pretty long testimony. But I finally get back to Texas, and I meet some people that I shouldn't have met. My mom actually had a lot of mercy on me, and she got me an apartment and had a car lined up for me and all kinds of stuff that I could do, and I blew all of that. I started using. I was still using, drinking, and but what happened was I got thrown in jail, and the jail experience was the final straw for me. When I went to this place, God made that experience absolutely terrible. I mean, literally, like the 5 days that I was in jail, I stopped a murder. I watched a guy get beat up over being in front of the TV. I saw a guy throw his food through the bars onto the floor. Complete and utter chaos, uncivilized chaos in this place. Just disgusting. Just a disgusting jail cell to be in with all these insane guys that didn't mind being there. It's crazy. And I just, homelessness was far, far better than being in a jail cell with these guys. And I got out of there, and my mom said, well, look, you can't, I gave you a chance with me, and you blew that. You need to go live in the homeless shelter. Well, I went and lived in a homeless shelter called Godtel, and this place was in Nacogdoches, Texas, a real tiny town, the oldest town in Texas. And this place had a mandatory Bible study every night and in the morning before you leave and when you get back. And so I was fed the Word of God there, and I really, all of these things that had happened since I left Dallas was just the build-up to the point, the climax where I finally had enough. God had basically given me plenty of chances. He gave me a Bible verse in Nacogdoches that really hit home with me and got my attention big time. Because of that experience that I'd gone through in California, I knew that I was really close to going to hell. And he gave me this Bible verse about how this tree bore no fruit. It's in the Bible, but the tree had bore no fruit. And the owner of the field said, "Hey, this tree is not bearing me any fruit. Cut it down and burn it. Cast it into the fire." And the man that worked the field and the vineyards and the plants and vegetables and the trees and things like that, the field, he said, "Well, hold on. Give me one more year. Let me dig around it, put some manure, water it. Let me try to help this thing. And if it doesn't produce fruit in one more year, yeah, cut it down." And so what I got out of that was the Father, and Jesus was like, wait, give me one more year. Just one more year. I'm going to try and work on this one more time. And I was like, whoa, this is it. I got to get my life straight now. So this was an important, very important time for me. I took a stand. And this is what I want to share with people about what it took for me to finally, if you've gotten this far, if you made it this far, you've seen all that I've gone through and how that addiction really had a hold on me. But let me tell you, if I can get set free, you can too. It doesn't matter what you're going through. But you've got to have a strategy, and this is what worked for me. When I finally got out of the shelter and I had my own room, I had a roommate that wasn't necessarily following the Lord, but not really a bad person. But I was meaning my roommate didn't do drugs or anything like that. Didn't the very thing that I kept having trouble with. But I got a job, and whenever I got off work, I came straight home, and I went to my room, and I read my Bible. In fact, it was this Bible right here. This Bible means a lot to me. A King James Bible, believe it or not. It wasn't the Bible I started out on, but it grew on me later. I read the Bible. All I had was a guitar in there, and I started finally writing music for the Lord. He gave me I wrote 50 songs during that period. Just a ton of music. And so all I had was a guitar. I had white walls, no TV, just the Bible and a guitar in a bed. And literally, I would, in order to get through the urges, the fleshly urges to go and get into the world, get mixed up, and which could possibly lead to drug use again, I would just go to sleep. Because I knew that if I went to sleep, when I wake up, I'll feel better, and those temptations will pass. So sleep was really important for me in the beginning. Another thing that was important was, you've really got to separate yourself from not only the world, but friends. People that you think are your friends. I mean, people that you know and that you like, and they like you, right? It doesn't matter if they're ungodly or what. I mean, if they like you and you like them, or you did at one time, or you're friendly towards them, well, those are your friends, and you got to stay away from them. You've got to have a limited friendship with those people. Very, very limited, if at all. I had to do that. I just did not hang around people. I was a loner for a while. You got to take a stand for your soul. And that's what I did. Another thing is entertainment. You know what I mean? I didn't listen to any secular music. I didn't want to listen to that. I didn't want to listen to, that was the stuff that kept pulling me back into the world. There's music that you shouldn't be listening to. Let's face it, music is very powerful. It's a powerful medium, and when you combine words with it, it becomes extremely powerful, and it can influence your life. So I separated myself not only from music and friends, and I slept off the urges, but I also I didn't watch TV. I stayed away from stuff like that. I really separated myself, and I needed that first 6 months. There was one period where I had complete and total peace in my room. It was wonderful. It was a nice room. It was a battle in there, though. I'll tell you that. It really was. But at one point, I was at a store, and I decided, hey, I'd like to have a poster on my wall. And I saw that this Beatles poster was on sale. Let It Be. It was a poster black with all their pictures, and it said Let It Be at the bottom. And I put that on my wall. And I tell you, the peace went away in my room. It went away. And I couldn't figure out what it was. I was like, well, what did I do differently? I'm sitting here trying to backpedal and figure out what I changed to cause my room to change like that, the atmosphere. And I finally figured it out. I thought, is it the poster? And I ripped the poster off the wall, and the peace came back into my room. So you got to really watch what you bring into your space. The devil has a right to be there if you're bringing things that are ungodly into your home. An example of that I read about later was a guy named Bob Larson, and he used to do exorcism and deliverance, and it's really called deliverance when you cast devils out of people. Well, I was reading this, and he had fasted for a few days, and he was going to do deliverance on this guy. And he went into the house, and he's doing deliverance, and he's talking to the spirit inside of the man. And at some point in the deliverance, the man cocked his head like that to the right. And Bob's like trying to figure out what he's looking at because he's just locked on it. And he said, he's talking to the spirit. He said, what are you looking at? And the spirit said, I'm drawing power from that object. So if you've got stuff in your house, you need to do an inventory of your home and make sure that what you have in your home is godly. If it's not, the devil has a right to be there. He can draw power. He can influence your house. I have experience with it. Richard Ramirez, one of the famous serial killers in California, years ago, I saw a documentary, and whenever he would get low on power or energy, he would draw the pentagram, and he would draw power from that. So you got to be very careful what you allow into your home. It should be totally committed to the Lord in every way. That means no ungodly program. I mean, let's face it, on TV now, it's pretty bad, really bad. I don't watch TV. I don't have a TV. This home is totally dedicated to the Lord. I haven't watched the TV. I mean, every now and then I'll catch a little TV if I'm over at somebody's house for a split second, or if I'm at Buffalo Wild Wings for maybe a few seconds, or, just like that. I did catch a cooking show one time this year with somebody for an hour, just to watch it. So, but it's clear to me that TV has been changing. And that's the word on the street that I get anyway. So dedicate your life. Make yourself totally dedicated to the Lord. Let's face it. It's America is really in a bad position right now with regard to her favor with God. We're turning our backs on the Lord. Some people have likened America to the Church of Laodicea. Now I'm starting to get into some deep stuff, and I don't really want to do that. I just want to keep this testimony really simple, so I'm not going to talk anymore about the deeper things of the Word or anything like that. I'll save that for other videos. But I just want to say that if anything, my testimony proves that I'm definitely a sinner. Wow, I really screwed up. It proves that God is so merciful, incredibly merciful. I should have gone to hell. I mean, there's no question. Many times. But I hope you get something out of it. He's changed my life radically. I take the Lord so seriously now. It took a while. This all happened like 10 years ago. And that doesn't mean that I'm perfect. I make mistakes. I do all the time. But you got to repent. You got to get right back up, and you got to repent, feel bad about it.